My name is Greg Mester. I'm a Scrum Master and Agile coach, just like everybody else out there. And we're gonna be talking to Absar Karim, and he is an Agile delivery specialist. Uh, he's not, I would say, he's not just an Agile mindset kind of guy, but he's living Agile. And as we interview him and talk about it, we're gonna find more about not just the classic interview, but we're gonna find more about him. Have Absar share different things about Agile and what he's doing and where he's going and things we can all learn from in the Agile world. Well, welcome.
Thank you, Greg.
Yay. Um, Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you like to do outside of the office?
Yeah, definitely. And before I start about myself, I'd like to take this moment and appreciate you for building up this whole Agile community. And I really believe it's a valuable platform for knowledge sharing and experience sharing. So I really appreciate you for that. Right. A little bit about myself. I've got more than 10 years of experience in software engineering. Started my career as a programmer. Later on, found my groove in digital transformation, agile deliveries domains. Outside work, I like cooking sometimes. I like spending time with my wife and kids. Like to learn and explore. I'm a member of a few like-minded people's groups.
Okay.
I'm not too much of a sporty guy, but I do like some healthy activities like jogging. I love my coffee. It has some nuts and herbs in it, so it tastes great.
Okay, good. I do too, and we do now. You're on the morning side. I'm doing an evening side. You're in the morning on your side because you're in Malaysia right now. So there's a 12-hour difference from where I am here in Philadelphia and where you're at, right?
Yeah.
So, um, so let's talk about your experience as an Agile delivery specialist because I really like the title. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're an Agile coach or whatever." I said, "There's all kinds of titles out there and things, and you have an Agile delivery specialist. What makes an Agile delivery specialist, and how did you get here?"
Yeah. So I think if you get to you're absolutely right that there can be many titles, and I'm also one of those mindset that doesn't really care about titles, but at the end of the day, when it comes about what kind of value are you delivering, right? That's how I summarize my value delivery as, right? The agile delivery and being an agile delivery specialist is as simple as leveraging agile practices to deliver results, right? And it's as simple as understanding and embracing the value delivery mindset, right? So, like I said, that when I started my career as a software programmer, I did realize uh, that I'm one of those people who are more oriented and interested towards the business advantages of things, right? So very quickly, I kind of realized my groove, and I went ahead and tried to expand my knowledge in that area. So I took a master's degree in project management, took Scrum Master certification, took a few other certification that kind of complementing with my experience made me what I am today, right? So I've got a lot of experience in agile transformations in public sectors, in banking, telecommunication, transportation, and of course making mistakes while I've been on it, learning from them. Until I still am learning, right? But I can tell that I am right now at a point where I can literally smell the patterns or the anti patterns in agile practices and kind of guide the teams and companies through it.
Okay, good. That's great. I learned a lot on that one. Um, so one of the things I read on your LinkedIn, I'm a little bit of a chicken, and sometimes, there are people here in Philadelphia that have never left the city of Philadelphia except for maybe go to the beach, and which is like an hour and a half drive. But other than that, they never left Philadelphia as a whole. But I'm looking at your profile, and you worked in the Middle East, the Far East. You're from Pakistan, right? And
Yep.
then you worked in Dubai over at UAE, and now you're in Malaysia. Why did you feel the need to travel the world, and how did you get that to that point?
Yeah. So again, I truly admire your attention to details out there. I really wish anyone seeing my profile looks into that much level of details as you did. So cheers to that.
Okay, thanks.
Uh, I believe that's what life is about. It's about continuous exploration. It's about continuous discovery, right? And it's my personal preference in life that by the end of my lifespan, uh, I don't want to look back and say, "Hey, I spent all my life living in this set of boundaries," right? I'd rather look back and say, "Hey, I explored the world. I met absolutely fantastic people around the world, right? I experienced multiple cultures, and indeed playing my own contribution in kind of pollinating great experiences from one country to the other,
Right.
right? And when I do imagine myself saying that, right, the feeling is so satisfactory and fulfilling that it keeps me moving.
How did you have any fear about moving from where you grew up to external, or you just said I'm going to do it and you just did it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's all about risk and reward, right? So whenever I do make this kind of move, it brings all of those nervousness around, right? Especially moving with family, with kids
Hmm.
going school is not an easy thing, right? So it's not just a physical move that you're performing, but it's also psychological factors that come in, and you have to deal with a lot of change management in your life.
Yeah.
But I do believe in taking risks and making the fine balance of risks and reward. And so far, I'm enjoying it.
Good. Well, that's half the battle, right? If we're not enjoying what we do and how we're getting there through our journey, it's like, what did I spend what's going on, right? And I think that's great, and I think it's great we get to share all your learnings from all these different countries and around the world and bring that here.
That's
Um,
the idea.
yeah. So can you share us? You mentioned a little bit of anti-practice, like that you have commonly seen and prevents agile teams or any team, because I think sometimes the anti-agile practice hit any kind of team, whether it be waterfall or agile, to deliver. What's preventing them from delivering value to the customer? Have you seen any anti-practices that really prevent them from delivering?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there are many out there. But if I have to speak about one major and common anti-practice, uh, that will be forgetting what the game is all about entirely, right?
Hmm.
Uh, People tend to forget that the game is about value delivery, right? And you do get to notice this, right? When you walk into those kind of teams, right? People who are kind of trying and doing agile while they do need a helping hand, right? You see the user stories also looking like this. As a user, I want X, Y, Z, and that's it, right?
Right.
The value limit is most of the times missing out there, right? So that's how it begins, right? And that kind of makes people holding on too tightly to their egos, right? And while I say this, there are many parameters to it, right? But I think I'll kind of very generically speak about it. That, for example, technical people will stick to their technical egos.
Hmm.
Product people will stick to their product egos, right? Even Scrum masters are going to stick to their Scrum egos.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's where I kind of walk in and start helping them and kind of guide them on to what I call the art of letting go. Uh, the other day, I was
Okay.
coaching a startup on prioritizing their user stories, and I think this is the conversation was around the same line that when you have this idea of this product, right? You feel attached to it, right? It's your baby, right? And
Right.
everything is important, right? But the moment they understood the whole concept of letting go and prioritizing, right? I think that was a moment worth celebrating because that was a beginning to add to a value how I can say a value delivery stream, right? So yeah, this is what it's about, right? And even if you look into the Scrum guide, that's also saying that the Scrum is majority about the art of maximizing the amount of work not done.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Um. Okay. The other day we were able to chat because I always try when I do the interviews have a little conversation to find out what's going on and what makes everybody tick and bring that in and the other day you mentioned three things that are key to delivery. Can you please share with us those three things, and why do you say it, right? Why do you say those three are so key?
Yeah, absolutely. My idea is that to manage successful deliveries, right, you need to manage agility in PPT, right?
Okay.
Not PPT as in PowerPoints, but what I call these three key aspects, which is people, processes, and technology, right? And it's in that same order, right? Mostly Scrum Masters or people taking responsibilities to deliver are tend to be biased towards any one of these at a given point in time,
Okay.
right? And that's where things do get kind of shaky, right?
Right.
But once you do become a view to these this holistic system, right? That's where you get it, right? You can't just make a process smooth and then your people part is struggling and your technology part is struggling, right? At the same time, you can't have the best of the best technology in the world, right? While your people are not aligned, right? Or your people are not, and vice versa, right? So to me, these three aspects are kind of a reflection of a holistic system.
Okay.
And anyone taking up a commitment to deliver have to see all of these three aspects.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying about the people, process, and technology. And I usually work the people and work it into those other things, help the people out, right? People, and then those other things are like additional things that the people can use, right? So I was reading your recommendations on LinkedIn, and I think it was Hassan where he said something like, and this is what I liked about it. It says you inspired all the staff with fulfilling of good energy. My question: how did you fulfill them with good energy? Because I really thought that I saw a couple that kind of said that, and I'm very curious of what did you do to make them energized.
Well, I feel really good that someone read my recommendations part of the LinkedIn profile. So thank you for that. So again, this connects to the previous question, right? That, like I said, that people, process, technology, and people part being the first and foremost and the most important element. That's what I strongly believe in. Right? So what I do believe is that as a servant leader, if you are kind of that servant leadership mindset, you can't really do it without building a sort of a personal connection with your team, right? You need to walk hand in hand with them. You need to show what's in it for them, right? You need to instill the purpose in those teams, right? And the moment you do it, right, you will see those teams do wonders, right? And that's all about that's all what I do when I walk into the teams, right? I really kind of work and show them what they truly are, and that's about it. And they enjoy working with me for this very purpose. While this particular recommendation, right, is connecting to this position that I was holding, and while I was having an authoritative role within that organization, I choose not to leverage authority, right? I choose to break all the barriers and all the formal boundaries, and literally get my hands dirty with the teams. I think if I have to sum it up very precisely, or a recommendation that I would give for the viewers out there, it's this book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Classic, right?
Yeah, and I believe that servant leaders should be living up to those points that Dale Carnegie highlights. And if you get into the crux of it, it's all about being a gentleman, right? It's about respect, it's about understanding, it's about appreciation. So I think that really plays a part in I wouldn't say people management. I would say in relationship building with people, and that's what you leverage to get things done in today's world, right? Today's world is not a command and control world. Today's market is globally competitive, right? People have options, a lot of options, right?
Yep.
So that's what I think is the way to kind of deal with people. Right? You give them respect and you trust them, and that's what the Scrum Guide says as well.
Yeah. I'm just writing down that you mentioned Dale Carnegie. I'm writing down my notes. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
We'll hit that one on the back on this when we come back. Okay. So you got everybody all pumped up and they're all full of good energy. How do you personally keep your energy level up on those bad days of work? Because you can come in, life sucks, this, that, and I can't, and this terrible. They're not doing my agile. No one's paying, they're working waterfall. It's taking them 6 months, and I'm trying to get them. So how do you get over those days, right?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question out there, right? Because these kind of situations are very, very human and natural circumstances that one finds himself in, right? So team watching waterfall and not going agile is not something that I'm really much bothered about, because that becomes my job to kind of guide the teams on them. And I think I've spent enough time in my life to kind of have or build up patience in my character to look ahead instead of just that situation, right? And look, I take it this way, that the responsibility of my role demands that I stay in my senses, right? So when you talk about agile coaching, right, it's not just those coaching stances in the war room, right?
Right.
It's also how you are practically demonstrating the way you speak, the way you act, right? The way you respond to tricky situations, right? Those are also, consciously or subconsciously, you are demonstrating the coaching stance. People are still learning from you on the way you speak, the way you act, right? So yeah, that being said, right, you can't avoid tough times, right? So what I usually prefer to do is stick by this famous proverb that says, "This too shall pass," right? And every time it does, right? So just an example is popping up in my mind when you talk about a tricky situation or tough situation. I think it's like almost a year and a half back, right? When I was in Dubai, and there was this new team that we were working to build up, and it was the first sprint demo. And of course, it was a very visionary kind of product that the guys were working on. The stakeholders were very, very highly involved in there, right? So that kind of built up a natural pressure during the demo. And developers being developers, until the last moment, until 10 minutes before the demo, they're fixing that small bug, that small refactoring, those small comments, right? So a lot of pressure was in the air, right? And of course, while the teams were nervous, somehow I was also nervous, right? But it's what do I choose? How do I choose to respond to that situation at that moment, right? If I show my nervousness, how it's going to impact my team? That's the question that I ask myself, right? So I walked to this developer, right? Literally 5 minutes before the demo, right? And he was all pressured and striking his keys, and he said, "Relax, dude. What's the worst that will happen?" Right? Stops. And he thinks, and he looks at me, smiles, and he says, "Thank you." We walk to the demo, and the next thing we see is he rocks the demo.
Right. Good. And I actually have done that to one of my colleagues before. They had everything backed up, and I just went to a question. Something was not working. I said, "Well, do you have this? Do you have that?" And he's like, "Yeah." So what are you worried about? You're good. And he's like, "Yeah." I took him down from jumping off the cliff and brought him back down there. Yeah, we are good. Thanks. Just sometimes that's what the agile person needs to do. And I will say, you gave me an idea, and I will later on talk about. I like your idea of looking forward and where you want to be, maybe like months from now, versus right at that moment. That moment may be chaos, but if you have the vision and the agile mindset, we're going to get there. I'm not going to sweat this one little event. I got 20 more opportunities to make them to where I think they can be, or help them get where they can be.
Yeah, and I think, look, if you look into the agile values, right, individual interactions over process and tools, and responding to change or following the plan, and so on and so, right? What you do see that those items on the left are the end, right, and the items on the right are the means, right? And what people tend to make a mistake around is that they get themselves a lot of pressure for the means and not the ends, right? If you keep your end in the vision, right, your means can be flexible.
Right. Okay. Let's see, what else do I have? Doozy questions, right? How has Agile helped a team in the past that you were proud of? So something like some of the recommendations said that you actually rescued. This is another one of the recommendations off your LinkedIn, by the way. I love the term rescued their projects, which is a great. It's like paratrooper came down and rescued them. And share what you saw and what did you do to help rescue this team?
Yeah, so and it's not very far back, right? It's just I think 6 months back when this happened, and specifically about this recommendation, the project in question, this recommendation, right? While this stuff is very common, right? You have been also in the industry. You must also have seen a lot of disastrous projects which did start very well, and all of the excitement, and then fast forward 2 weeks. You see the team morale is going down, product taking all together different dimensions, right? So when I walked into this project, right, it was around so already midway in the timelines, right? So it was, I think, a 6 months project, and I walked into this team on the third month, right? And when I joined this team, right, I walked into this war room, and I was stunned because the walls were full of sticky notes, right? Jira tickets all around. So I said to myself, well, this is a very mature agile team. They're killing it at Kanban. What do I have to do to add value to the team, right? Well, let's see how that goes, right? So comes the time for stand-up, and they did like almost an hour of stand-up meeting, right?
I love it.
Oh yeah, and to my surprise, it was not just the stand-up meeting for the day, right? So they were having a stand-up meeting in the morning and a stand-up meeting in the evening, and both around an hour and 40 minutes in duration, right? And all of those stickies, when I got into the details of it, right? So those stickies were telling me a different story. When I look into the information system, Jira, that was telling me an entirely different story. When I go speak to the Scrum Masters and product owners, they were telling me a totally different story. And when I go speak to the teams, they were telling a totally different story, right?
Right.
So, and when this basic housekeeping is a disaster, right? The end product can't be any better, right? The same was the picture for the product as well, right? The quality was suffering, the delivery was suffering, stakeholder expectations were suffering, right? And what I did was literally tweaking some what I call quick wins, right? Very, very quick wins, right? So just streamlining some basic housekeeping.
Give me one quick win.
Yeah, so I think the most basic one was to reduce or eliminate the waste from the process, right? So why those 2 hours of meeting in a day, right? So I kind of streamlined that involvement of the teams in the meeting, right?
Okay.
I did stand up the Scrum way, the standard Scrum way, right? So time bound, specific questions, coach the Scrum Masters to kind of how to not just facilitate but also become a guardian to the meetings pattern and all of it, right? But it would be unfair if I say just correcting the stand-up corrected the whole thing, right? Like I mentioned, the approach, right? So I focus on all 3 of those dimensions, right? So some ceremonies was one of them, right? Building up the craftsman culture in terms of technology, the engineering best practices, CI/CD, and all of that stuff, right? And it did bring tangible outcomes, within a couple of weeks, right? The amount of stickies on the walls literally dropped down by 70%.
Wow.
The velocity was very much variating across sprints. So by 3 months, they had spent around 6 sprints, right? And the velocity of one sprint is going like 20, and the other is going like 60, and the next sprint again is 30. So it was all chaotic, right? So I kind of worked to kind of standardize everything, right? You really can't manage what you can't measure, right? So I came to a specific velocity, a standard. I made a team agreement on how do we define the story points as. And then when we brought the stability in the story points, right? Then we did the next step, which is to optimize for those story points to increase the quality of our deliverable, right? So the team enjoyed it, the stakeholder enjoyed it, right? At the end of the day, the product was well delivered, It was high quality. Client was happy, and most importantly, the teams were happy. They were able to take those experiences to the next projects, and those projects were done much better in this company than this one.
Great. It sounds like it was a real good adventure, and you helped him out a lot. So that's awesome.
So yeah. By the way, it's easier said than done, right? So I really had to stand by my team's side, right? I had to spend 8 nights with them because that's what brings them up to that morale and that motivation that one needs, right? You can't be a stay-at-home manager that I walk out of the office at 5 o'clock while my team is suffering until 10 o'clock, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. And then the quickest thing is I'd be like, why are you here till 10 o'clock? Let's get you not being here until 10 o'clock so we can all go home at a decent time.
Yeah, that in software deliveries, these times are sort of common, at least in this part of the world where I have most of my exposure on, right?
Yeah.
As closer you walk towards your deadline, right, pressure starts building up.
Oh yeah, yeah. That happens. But the question I always has, are you doing it every day? And if you're doing it every day, it tells me you're not doing it right.
Yeah, that's right.
You're going to stress out because you're going to burn out. What's going to happen once you deliver that? You're done. Your team is burnt the next project,
absolutely.
Right?
So I'm a big proponent of this sustainable pace mindset, right? It takes a lot of effort to take your teams to there, right? It's a whole huge mature level of agility that we're talking about, right? It's possible and very much possible, and we have done that, right? But for people not very agile or struggling with agile, do struggle with those factors. So agile really solves that problem, right? And of course, other frameworks like XP from agile also talk about sustainable pace and also talk about all those practices. So I have seen those values and those promises getting delivered, and I have actually delivered those promises. So,
cool.
So yeah, you're right. Sustainable pace is $1 million thing in software industry.
I think what helps get that sustainable pace is, like you said, you got rid of all that all that extra clutter time that they're wasting, right? When I get rid of what I do is when I get rid of all that clutter, it frees their time up and I say, good, go home. You're not spinning around anymore trying to figure out what you're doing, So cool. That was great, and it was really cool that you were able to rescue them and just take surveillance of the area. This is great, and then you dig in and said, oh my God, it's not really that great. And then you figured out we got to work on this. Sometimes the visual looks like, oh yeah, everything's great, and then you dig a little bit deeper and you go, yeah, no, they're not doing it. It's like so many times I had companies that say, oh yeah, we're doing Agile, and you go, you're not doing Agile. I don't know what you're doing, but it's your ain't Agile. Well, they told us it was Agile. So anyway, in the beginning of this interview, right, I mentioned that you are not just of the Agile mindset, but you are living Agile. Could you please share what you think of when we say living Agile? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of Agile, isn't it? That although it evolved from software development industry, right? But if you get the grasp of the core values of Agile, right, you can literally apply it anywhere, right? And I do it all the time. Right? Agile is about focusing on people. It's about flexibility to change, for example, right? So I have counseled my friends in a chaotic situation in their lives, right? By applying some techniques, right? A long-term backlog, a short-term backlog, prioritization, right? Those things have been applied into real life, right? And we have value delivery in real life, not just in software, right? So the kind of discipline that Agile brings, right? I myself lean on Kanban all the time, for example, for managing my daily routine, or even my career, for example, right? So, like I just mentioned that, a lesson that you learn from Agile is that, you don't focus a lot on me, but actually have your vision for the ends, right?
Right.
And that's what's important, right? And all it takes is, a direction shift that, instead of me spending all of my energy into into the means, right?
Mm-hmm.
I focus on the outcomes, right?
Okay.
And that's what Agile is all about, right?
That kind of leads back to what you were saying earlier about thinking long term and the outcomes that you're looking to gain, and what we had talked about earlier. So okay, great. Um, okay, so continuous learning. You mentioned Dale Carnegie, right? So you'd reading Dale Carnegie and going there. So we were chatting the other day, and you mentioned that you're working on a book. So now you're going to be part of that continuous learning world. And can you give us any teaser information about this book concept? What you're thinking? What do you think of bringing to the Agile world and the continuous learning in the Agile world?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, when you put yourself onto a continuous learning drive,
Mm-hmm.
right, and you start reading and you start connecting with people in the industry, right, it does naturally build you also up to a level that you also want to share your experiences to the world, right? So it connects the dots with the previous question, where I said that you know when I said that I'm living agile, right? Which is I'm applying the agile mindset into my personal life and my friends' lives, for example, right? So the idea of this book is actually also out of one experiment that I did, right? So I took these agile practices and applied it into another industry that is very close to my heart. And I saw very good outcomes in that one, right?
Okay.
So this book is coming out in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. I'll be sending a free copy out to you as well.
Okay.
And we can have another detailed conversation about it later on.
So good. So when you get it out there, we'll do an interview on the books, and to tell everybody out there who's writing books. If you want to do a show, we'll do an interview. We'll send me the book. We'll read it. We'll talk about it. We'll do an interview and talk about the book and introduce it, because I'm always happy to help other people out. I believe win-win, right? I mean, everybody can benefit from each other. So awesome. That's great. So now I'm gonna say, tell us something that's not in your LinkedIn profile. Something that yeah, I got your resume. That's one of the questions. Got the resume. You got the resume. What is not in that resume that makes you who you are, right? That would make you stand out, right?
That's a very interesting question, and I think very interestingly, all what we have spoken so far is not there in my LinkedIn resume right now. Probably I'm thinking right now to put this video after it's out onto my LinkedIn profile, so it really fills all those gaps which are there at the moment, right? Because you said, right, yeah, my experience lies there, my job titles, my durations lie there, right? Some of my responsibilities and things lie there, right? But the fact that I'm writing a book, for example, the fact that I'm living agile, the values that I believe in, is of course not mentioned. So that's one part of it, right? That being said, if I have to kind of specifically answer this question, I have to share one thing that's not specifically mentioned in my profile, and not a lot of people may be knowing about it.
Okay.
And I don't know if you will be surprised after having these couple of conversations with me, is that I've been an introvert personality type. I've been very shy in communicating, right? And you see many people with technical background with that kind of personality, right? But what I did was work on really hard to cope up with the missing elements. Because that introvert part of your personality becomes a barrier in you growing up as a leader, right? But I believe that anything you dedicate and commit yourself on, you can achieve that, right? Human being is a very flexible species, right? It can do wonders. Anything that you can think of is possible. That's what I truly believe in, right? So yeah, I worked hard on it, and I think this has also helped me, right? Because being an introvert while trying to open up and communicate openly with people, right? It makes me reach a fine balance of staying to the point in communication. People like it, people appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting said that. I could say the same thing about myself many years ago. Sometimes you just got to do it, and once you do it, it's like it breaks that fear factor, right? And that helps you. The more you do it, just like Scrum and Agile. I always tell people, the more times you do it, the easier it becomes, right?
That's right.
And sometimes you just got to jump and do it. So I think this is a great interview. I appreciate it, and it was really interesting the way you said at the end. And I'm looking at what we talked about. I think it does paint a really good picture of different things that people can go away from, take away from, and going out there and doing it. And I think your life has shown that. I think you're doing really well.